Go ahead and get started. Call the meeting of the Ocean Highway and Road Authority, or the meeting of the poll will be off.
Heavenly Father, Lord, we're grateful, thankful for the great time that we live. We pray now that you would meet with us. We make the business transactions for the open highway and port authority. We pray, Lord, that you would give some that we need. We also pray for this country. We pray for our safety, people who are in harm's way of the hurricane. We ask that you get them, Lord. We also pray for peace in Israel and Ukraine. Watch over our first responders and servicemen and women and keep them safe. We ask all those in Jesus' name. Amen.
Let's remain the pledge of allegiance.
Commissioner Cole, Commissioner Forwood, Commissioner Nelson, Vice Chair Taylor, Chair Hill. Thank you.
I'd like to recognize folks in attendance. We also like to introduce our operator, let's here representing Savage, here report our comment, those and then Patrick Rachowski, our lawyer, is also here tonight. Ms. Joanna Forward, thank you for being here. Vegas team, Bob Virtue. We have some folks from FDOT here tonight. They'll be giving presentations. So Kyle and Christina, I'll let you introduce yourself and come up. Thank you all for being here tonight. So next item is public comments on the agenda. We received one request for comment from Mr. Bob Virtue. If you could please come to the and please state your name and address.
Bob Virtue, 424 Third Street. I'm not here to talk about these restrictions, so that's professional. But with regard to item 7, and I forget which one it is, but it was one of the items that had to do with warehousing. And I just want to make it known that the neighbors are so upset about the covered warehouse that's been constructed already. So I would hope that if there is another warehouse constructed, that the port operator do a better job of deciding where it wants to go before it goes to for approval. And it always sticks to its guns. Once another location is approved, that's where the covered warehouse is built. That's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Virtue. All right, so that's it for public comments. The next item is the presentation from FDOT. You all like to come up and introduce yourselves and say hi. Thank you, Ms. Ann. My name is Christina Nelson, so friend Chris. I work for FDOT, the new freight seaport coordinator, Kyle Hoffman. He is supervisor over freight logistics, kind of a little bit of everything. We just wanted to come and present some of our projects we have. So the first project is G1W55. It is with the cloth warehouse. The funding for this project was $754,000. There has been no expenditures as of yet, but we have been told that invoicing is expected soon. The PTGA or contract is going to be ending at the end of this month, but the agency does have another 120 days to send in an invoice. So we have been reassured that that's coming soon.
Yeah.
The next project is for the peer improvement. It's the G2437. This one, FDOT's participation is $197,000. Again, we have no expenditures, no invoicing for almost 3 years now. We are waiting. I think the agency had said they are working on the scope, and we're waiting to hear about RFPs. Just wanted to see if you guys had any updates on that. Just let us know.
I've been reminding about the RFP.
Thank you. We'll just keep an eye on that and then I don't wanna just put you on the spot, right, for each of these projects, these are opportunities to, deploy, obviously deploy funding, here to do that. Are you able to identify which projects are, being considered these projects?
Yeah. There's this event set. Can you go to the
Oh,
first one?
the first one.
Yeah.
That one was expired.
Or it's expiring at the end of the month, I guess.
Mhm.
But we are expecting to submit invoices for the work.
Yeah, that's the fact.
Should have.
Yes.
That should be complete. You should have requested the reimbursement, everything, right? Oh, we have an engineering stamp that I think would require. To submit, and so that's on the way.
Yeah.
I think it got some progress today, actually. But we should be able to provide that engineering staff. Okay, so that's good.
And you can submit the invoice as soon as possible. You don't have to have the engineering certification before that.
Okay, so you got all the invoices submitted, is that right?
No, I sent it to Mary to double check, and I'm waiting for her to bring it back to me.
What's
To
the
submit.
deadline to have all the invoices submitted?
For this one, just as soon as possible, but there's like 20 days after that.
The explanation to finalize everything.
Exactly.
All right, we'll follow up with Mary.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so this we're planning, this one we are planning on doing, making improvements, and we have this, yeah, it won't take long to execute.
Okay.
So is this related to, it doesn't say that it goes electrical, this is just.
The banners is what we're looking for.
Do we have a contractor that's doing it, or is it our own side only?
Right.
We need an RFB for this project.
So we can add that to,
That's we self-perform.
right,
Yeah. But let me look.
so if it exceeds the statutory thresholds, then we have to bid. I think it's 100. I don't know, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I thought it was 150.
Please clarify.
Yes.
Ours is.
So I think, you look, you look at follow like your procurement policy is, your procurement policy has to be a minimum compliant with all the state requirements, it can be more restrictive, but not less restrictive.
Thank you.
Yeah, we don't have a separate policy, we just follow the states. So as I recall, this would have exceeded that threshold. If it's for publicly owned facilities, the threshold is pretty low. It's a total.
Okay.
So if the award to a particular contractor exceeds the statutory threshold, then we have to put it out to bid, but we can put it on the next meeting, agenda to, just put an RFP out to bid, we need to see whatever the draft is before that. If that's too soon, we're not following, but
We just did it.
And this one has time, so I mean, the PTGA end date is not till 2026. Just keep it updated, yeah.
Okay.
About part.
Thank you.
Thank you.
we like shiny new vendors, so.
Huh?
We like shiny new vendors.
Oh, yeah.
right? More.
Getting there. Next one is, oh, sorry, the next one is the ARPA, from the coronavirus, federal grant, it's G 2600. Again, this one, I think we had talked about this at the last meeting. The drawdown for this one, the last invoice should draw down by the end of October is what we were told, so that's kind of what we're waiting for.
Yep.
They've been invoicing pretty regularly, on the quarter, so.
We're preparing last invoice.
Yeah. And once that's submitted, we've been working on compliance and then closing it out. So, this one's good to go. And the last one is G2W07, this is the security PTGA, for the, Customs and Border Patrol buildings. This is, sorry.
Sorry, I was gonna say, this one's complete.
Okay.
Has it been,
There have been no invoices.
So this would be the Siskevich
yeah,
work.
Yep,
or-
I will, send it to Mary to double check and then, we'll
I-
submit it.
I don't think Mary has this invoice that should.
I know, I will send it to her. I will send the invoices to her.
What she, I don't think she needs to double check it. I think this, if she wasn't that directly done.
Well, that's our process. I send her copies of the check and then she checks it. And she does the calculations and then sends it to me. That's our
Okay.
process.
And then for the documentation for closeout compliance, we just need whatever documents you guys can provide, with maybe the cost estimates, the concept development, whatever documentation you have, upload it into CSIP. So you can start working on that too, but again, submit the invoice whenever you can, and we work on that. It's a little for us. Yeah. If you guys ever have any questions, you can reach out to Paul, that's at any time.
Madam Chair, I have a question. Christina, and Mr. Kaufman. If we cannot find the engineer for the project, let's say for the dredging, what else can we submit in lieu of the engineer certification?
You say send an email, and then you try to get it. If you can't understand the dredging happened some time ago, and different operation, there's a lot of changes. If you cannot get it, just send us an email detailing that you tried to obtain it, cannot obtain it, we'll put that in the project file.
Okay,
It's proof that we, that's a due diligence process, let's send it.
okay, perfect, thank you.
Well, while we have you guys here, for next year, as the notice of any opportunities to come out, we should be looking, for those notices to be in spring, right?
With applications,
Right. And I know one of the things that you've mentioned in the past that would be helpful would be have an engineer, as a continuing retainer, so that we could go out and deploy and, move forward, shovel ready. If we, so is that something that we should submit for the next cycle or?
Yeah, I think, what we typically, I don't know that you get funding through the state or SN for the engineer, but all the agencies I work with, and I'm responsible for work with all the airports, seaports, railroads, in the 18 county Northeast Florida region. I think y'all are the only one that does not have, I can recall, that does not have an engineering firm under a continuing services contract. We used to. Now, I don't think it costs you anything. You go out and do an RFP and they work on a task basis and you would not issue them a task until you had a grant that was billable against. And what that does, it prevents you from having to do RFPs for every project. You have an engineer on board, you have a task, you have that backed up on grant funding and they immediately start work within potentially a few weeks of getting the grant.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And you gave me that advice back
Several years ago.
several months ago. And we've talked about it at board level, but we haven't done it, so.
And I think when it assists with y'all's drawdown, I think drawdowns have been an issue with OPA for some time, and the timeliness of completing projects. I will say it has gotten better recently. But I think that's another tool that's helped y'all kind of accelerate the project over time.
So would it be project specific, it's just a,
Services.
so we can take that on, in the next meeting or the meeting after that, depending on, how soon we can put together the RFP, I guess RFP for an engineering company. Engineering firm.
Well, we had an engineering company and we had an agreement. How many years ago? Good question, probably 10 years ago.
Say that again.
When was that?
hear you. Bring them up.
We had an engineering company and we had an agreement, for engineer and an agreement in place. Was that agreement canceled or? mean,
And do you remember who it was?
it was the guy, his father booked for it or whatever.
What it says?
What was that?
Grant system?
Is that? Yes. I, was it in that time that,
Trans Systems was the one that did the boring,
No, but it's-
statements under the construction that determined that the footers were gonna have to be, redone.
it wasn't trans system, no, this was, was the Florida senator, or Florida, the representative from Florida? I'll look back in my notes and see. Ray, Lake Ray.
Oh,
Yeah,
so we could provide a template for an instead. That would help.
Great.
Epstead may be helpful too, if y'all don't have to customize the scope. They may be helpful in giving you a cookie cutter, but everyone else is throughout the state.
Thank you for that advice. Awesome. Thank you for working the drive the night before the storm.
Thank you.
Good for you all, these weather events are known for Hurricane Harvey, and, you're the first to get the calls when there's issues, your teams are around the clock, so thank you so much for clearing the roads and doing all the things you do every day. And, you can stay with me if you like.
We're on hurricane, we all have hurricane duties, so thank you.
Thanks so much for coming. Thank you.
Tracy,
So, next up is old business.
what about these products that are on the website? Yeah. And, Spire products,
Yes,
talk about in that YouTube.
I'm working on uploading all the necessary documentation. That's part of the engineer certification. So I'll get those.
Any other discussion on number 7? Well, I would like to acknowledge the comment about Mr. Richard about where its location, and that's noted. I agree that OPA didn't have the opportunity to deliberate on that location, and and I agree that the public should have the opportunity to come and hear, participate in that meeting, and see the plans in advance. Absolutely, don't agree with everything you just said. So, I think it's one of those where fool me once. So I don't think this board is going to see another warehouse go out without having seen the plans. So thank you for coming in and reminding us of that. Okay, next up is item 8A, our budget for fiscal year 2024 through 2025. And this is an action item. You have a resolution has been prepared and a draft budget. Here have there been any material changes since the last presentation of the budget?
the only change is from the sheet I sent you, is obviously I changed, on line 6031 from worldwide terminals to Nassau terminals and to yeah. So that was it. All the rest of the numbers stayed essentially the same, so.
There's a question mark next to office supplies, like double question marks. This is page 14 of the packet.
Yeah, so, and that was for sorry, that should be gone. That was for whether we were gonna put the computer, which was purchased, and we had the discussion, the computer was actually purchased in this year. And so it didn't need to go into the budget for next year. And that was in the office supplies, so we've taken that out, so. But that was already out this time, at the last one I showed this.
Does anyone have any comments or questions about the budget? No? Other than the question marks? You can take those out of the file.
Yeah. I think we talked last time, obviously, the port per ton revenue is on line 6,000 with the tonnage fees. And obviously it's split between, we created this new category called Boyd's PA Reserve Funds. So the first $50,000 of tonnage, the $1.50 per ton goes into the OHPA to use as they want. So as I said, we created this category called Auto OHPA Reserve Fund. And then the remainder, other than, like I said, there's a small amount, 3% that goes to OHPA operations. That's the 2,082, and then the remainder goes into the construction and maintenance reserve for maintenance needs at the port. That's the biggest change from last year. Everything else is essentially the same.
So the facility used to be based on tonnage of $2,000. How's that calculated? So that's item 6,000.
So it was based on last year's tonnage at $1.50 per ton. So we took 2,000 the full year tonnage for last year. Right, the last full year that we had, so January to December 2023, and use that to calculate the $1.50 per ton. So that rate now starts to go up by inflation each year from here going forward.
So our tonnage last year was 261,000, right?
Something like that. Look back at my notes to.
I have 256,190 for year-to-date 2023.
256,190. So you multiply that by $1.50.
Year to date through,
No, last year,
That's
2023,
So 256,000 times
$1.50.
$1.50. And then it's a quarter of that for the first.
Right.
Let's
And
see.
yes, 25% of that.
So I get 96,000,
Yeah.
71, and so you're dividing that by the first,
So the first $50,000
okay,
goes into an OHPA reserve fund. So the first $50,000. Then after that, the remainder and going forward, so that 50,000 is a one-time item. And so after that, 46, what should be 46?
well, I calculated 96,000, and you're saying the first 50 goes in reserve, so.
Right.
50,
And then-
that'd be 46.
And so a portion of that comes to the OHPA operations, that's 2,882. The remainder goes into the maintenance fund. So yeah, your 46 is the 43 plus 2,882. Yeah, you see the 2,882 under OHPA port operation.
Yes.
Okay, so again, the agreement says that a portion of the tonnage fee comes to OHPA for operating, to spend as they want to. The remainder in that split is, I believe, if I remember correctly, 3%, and the other rest of the percentage goes into the maintenance
and that was
up to $1 million into the maintenance.
3% is up to 50,000, I think.
Yeah.
So
So no, I think so. I've taken it as so the first $50,000
that's
is the OHP reserve fund, right? So that comes up, and again, that's only in the first year. Then after that, and going forward, the split is 3% to OHP operations, the remainder into OHPA maintenance and reserve fund. Okay, and that's where the 46,000 is separated into 2,882 into the port operations, and the remainder into the maintenance and reserve fund. And and obviously, once the maintenance and reserve fund reaches a certain amount, anything above that goes to OHPA.
Because you're not showing the reserves, it's reserves. Where, I see unrestricted funds from here, it's at 43,233.
So you're looking at line 6,000.
I saw 6,000, yeah.
So that's so obviously OHP operations. That's the treasurer's report. right? That's the money we essentially for the OHP operations, the daily whatever that we want to spend on. We've created a new account called the OHP Reserve Fund, which is the $50,000. And then obviously the construction and maintenance reserve, which is the same account that the operator puts 5,000 month in.
But they are no longer doing that once they start paying this fee, right?
Still, that 5,000 doesn't change. It doesn't change for inflation. So it stays at $5,000. The $1.50 goes up as per inflation. Obviously the annual fee goes up by inflation. You know, all those are inflation factors, but the 5,000 stays at 5,000.
Gotcha. Okay, makes sense. That's why it's falling off forward. Okay.
Chair, the office administrative salary, we're raising that by 3%, is that cost of living?
Correct.
And we're not showing our account any kind of additional funds.
Correct.
We haven't given him any money in how many years now?
No,
It's been a while.
no, a year and a half ago, we increased it for all the OHP, the grant work we were doing that we took on after the port, county, or port, not the port, executive. Something.
It's in the contract. You just see it as in a contract. It's not a discretionary. So whenever the budget was initially prepared, it didn't have that adjustment, and we asked. I asked Pierre to make the investment for the inflation as it is a contract. So I don't think, does your contract have an inflation adjustment?
Because our contracts continue, so.
Hmm. Are you asking for an increase?
He's not gonna ask, I think. Or as much work as he does in this position, I think it should.
I think he does a good job, but he also has other clients. So, I mean, I would hear that request if you brought it to us. I mean, he's got a right to retain him, so just like with Patrick sends us bills, if you don't offer him a raise per hour. Yes.
Anymore, Saturday's making off of us.
I'm not saying it's not, I'm saying raise water, just sort of your other accounts, if you were gonna, going to pay, increasing the cost of services. Then I think we'd be the different.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, I think we're good. So obviously, again, we took on the added responsibility and added with when we took on the grant. So some of that will be slowing down, obviously, as we have fewer grants and the ARPA grant overrates. That's I think it'll be. Thank you. But thanks.
Any other items standing out to anybody? Sure.
So, well, you have to adopt the resolution here. So
Yep.
there's a resolution over this.
There's a revision. It's 2024 R09. It's very active budget.
Yes, formally adopting the budget for the fiscal year as a resolution. So
The motion to approve this resolution. 2024 +10.
I'm sure.
A motion and a second to adopt resolution number 2024 R09. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed?
No,
All right, we have a 4-1 vote for the budget. With Commissioner Colwood dissenting. Next item up on the agenda. 8B, MARAD, Fort Punch vessel disposition. So you've received in your packet and in emails the red line of the purchase and sale agreement for Fort Punch together with related equipment. And you all have read it. Or We've received comments from council for the operator. We also have in front of you draft language to the operator requesting reimbursement for tug revenues and tug related the trucks. Rosanna and I went to Blue House, which is where Savage made available the revenue documents, so all the receipts. And we personally, with the help of Kyle, and you're running into us for an hour. We personally took staples out of papers and fed them into a printer machine and scanned in all of those receipts so that we could tabulate the revenues and the expenditures. So in our standard revenue share and operating agreement, we get a share of either tonnage or we get a share of revenues as they are calculated top line items. We don't typically do a net calculation to determine what Open's share would be, because that it's really up to the operator to decide how to run the business, right? And how they're going to allocate costs for the functions. So it's just much simpler to look at the top line items to say what share is appropriate for OPA.
In regard to, I don't,
So in our operating agreement, we get a share of tonnage, right? Or we get a fixed fee. It's not, right, it's not calculated based on profit margin, right? So for example, the first year that Savage was here, came in, there was I think $7 million loss, operating loss. But when you go through, you know, the bonds disclosures annually, there might be an operating loss certain years. OPA doesn't, our share doesn't change, our share revenue doesn't change based on operating losses.
it's not sure.
Right, yeah. So we were able to calculate all the revenues that have been collected through the top. And you all have seen that spreadsheet. So for the years that Savage has been operating, the tug is 1.474. And then we also have the prior years.
Are those costs supposed to be accurate?
I'm just talking about the right. So it was $1,474,000 in revenue from the tug. And then for the years prior, we actually had public records requests into the prior operator. And those revenues were $924,000. So, right. I think it was
Revenues related to what?
for the tug.
Outside of this?
Those are for the years before Savage, was the operator.
How is that possible? This was purchased early 2021.
So we have, received receipts from the operator. It was 2020, and things in 2021.
Like, I thought it was purchased January 6th.
That's correct. So it's before Savage was,
Thought it was purchased January 6th. I'm not,
I'm saying before Savage was the operator.
that is before we were the operator. But you wouldn't have a lot of money before January 6th, 2021. This is that wasn't purchased.
You didn't purchase the tug, did you? Well, my purchased it.
I'm seeing that so the NAV, listen, the NAV has not ceased to exist. The NAV existed before we had a change in the prior. But how can we have record prior to January 6th? I don't know, how can any have record on the side?
Before it was purchased.
Yes.
It was purchased 2020,
No,
January 6th, 2021.
yeah,
So, but the revenues that we've shown as like docking and undocking that we got from review chief from back in that last public records request, what is the first date of those receipts? Because those were not provided as part of your response. Like when we came to your office, you said you weren't providing us anything from prior to Savage's involvement.
I said we look for it. Or
They want-
yeah, it all 2021.
Okay. So we might have done, I don't know what you're saying.
It sounds like it, yeah.
Okay. It's been a contention of this commission that from July 2022 to current, that's a little over 2 years, that there is a substantial amount of revenue that's been generated by that subdivision. And this commission has not received one nickel. That's not right.
Why would you be seeing it?
Not right.
Why would you?
It's not right.
Why,
Dollars. Approximately $1 million on the table.
but why would you?
Why would you?
Yeah,
Because
So
okay.
when the tug was purchased, this discussion was had by the commission. And it was specifically decided, because the question was asked at that meeting, should there be a separate agreement for the tug? The decision by the Port Authority at that time was that no, the tug is another asset, just like the cranes, just like the warehouse of the Port Authority. It was decided at that point. That decision,
fixed asset.
they're not a fixed asset.
With the tug of well,
I understand what you're saying.
I know the beginning of
I'm saying
the new development.
at an Ocean Harbor Port Authority meeting, when the discussion was had, that question was specifically asked, and that was the answer that was decided at that meeting.
You know,
I guarantee you that.
was a meeting where the board asked, and this is before I was on the board, but the board had asked about having a lease in
Right.
place, a separate agreement. And you said that if that happened, that it would be subject to tax, that they would be considered a lease, and that would potentially be taxed, so registered.
And the decision was
But
made.
the board, I think, said they didn't want shared revenue because in fact, in 2022, when the board entered into a settlement and global release with worldwide terminals, specifically cited are the revenues, the additional revenues related to the port pledge, that those were preserved claims, like they're actually preserved claims on revenue. And it's spelled out in that letter, and then attached to that, later, we referenced that same settlement agreement when we requested all revenue records, and the council for the operator provided all those revenues pursuant to that settlement and release. So this has been ongoing, and it's not a new discussion, the ask for open to be asking for revenue. And by my calculations, it was over $2 million worth of revenue. I know that Greg is saying there's some no accounting. The lowest number was 1.47. Well, and that doesn't count all of the cruise ship dockage and labor thing that has not come over and is outside of the agreement. All the labor thing, which was several $100,000, that OPA didn't get any share of that either.
I understand it's always been a point of contention, especially with several commissioners.
Thank you for acknowledging that it had always been a condition.
But
Protection.
the contention has always been that decision was made. Should there be a separate lease at that meeting? Should there be a separate lease? The decision by the Port Authority at that point was that there would not be a separate lease agreement for the tug. That decision was made, that it would be treated like any other assets, like the cranes. I don't see a difference between a mobile harbor crane on tires and a tugboat. And that was the decision. I'm just saying, again,
Well,
yes, it's been a point of contention. It's been brought up by.
it's disagreements with cargo duty and warehousing, regardless of how developed, which party, all new or additional revenue streams not completed in this agreement shall be divided between the Port Authority, shall be divided between the Port Authority and the operator as mutually agreed.
Right.
And in their bond disclosures at the end of the year, when the tug was acquired, they said this was a new revenue stream. And that this was a fixed cost, that this was a material change, enough to disclose it to bondholders. And at the time that that was published, the board came back and said, why aren't we getting any share of those revenues? And
The exact argument you're making. The exact argument you're making is the argument that's been made over and over and again. And the argument has always been, and again, we're having it again tonight. This is an asset of the port. That decision was made at the time the asset was acquired, that this asset would be treated no differently from the cranes, the warehouses, the trucks, that decision was made. I understand that you don't agree with it. I understand that. And you never agreed with it, but the decision was made at that point.
And it's a time where a decision should be made to make this a revenue stream, just one of the budget, an opportunity for us to generate to share. I just, my issue comes with, it wasn't done then when it should have been done, the way it was first acquired, versus now, and I understand the concept's been going on, but that was the time to do it, that was the time to make that decision. And unfortunately, one at a time, decided not to. Yeah, just one of us, there's a lot of money, it's, looking to take here. We're gonna share it.
Now, just
Yes.
to make, Rosanna, you said we got a copy of the minutes from the last meeting, but do you have a copy or do you have wording of what was said at the last meeting where Commissioner Taylor made the motion?
I don't.
So I think it's, Commissioner Cool made the motion, I need a second.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. That didn't mean. I copy of it.
One moment.
What was that motion?
One moment, please.
Not thank you.
The motion. Commissioner Fullwood motion to accept the $1 million offer for sale of the Fort Clinch tugboat and have the port attorney and operator prepare an agreement in the next 2 weeks. Vice Chair Taylor second the motion. And then
Second. You voted to sell the tug. We agreed to the life. We agreed to it. That's about now.
There's nothing else attached to that, no, about that.
Okay, and there you go. That's what I'm saying. We can't keep on adding it out until the game would into our way. It's a 3-2 vote. It comes, so.
there was discussion after that motion. Discussion was Commissioner Fullwood suggested negotiating the share of past revenue at a later date through the operating agreement. Mr. Kuchowski clarified the terms where the tugboat's primary purpose and use would be in Fernandina. Otherwise, the operator must provide a tug service at their cost to replace and maintain it. Mr. Hale declared that they were committed to keeping the tugboat in Fernandina with the caveat of dry dock events. This should be part of the purchase agreement. Commissioner Fullwood and Vice Chair Taylor both amended their motion and second respectively to reflect the above mentioned discussion in addition to the $1 million purchase price.
So the bit about talking about negotiating for revenue outside of full purchase and sale agreement, the language that I'm proposing is not to put it into the purchase and sale agreement. I just prepared this because I heard and I saw in the minutes that we are trying to deal with it at a later date under the operating agreement. And so I found a section of the operating agreement that does require sharing revenue. I looked up the global release where we specifically called out these revenues as being preserved for a claim. And I just wrote the language. So that's why I had it typed up. I'm not asking to amend the purchase and sale agreement to include it. I just wanted you to see it at this time so that we can make sure it doesn't go away because we keep kicking the can on these things. I mean, I've observed meetings and I've sat on this board now long enough where I hear the board expressing wishes instead of making requests formally. So I just wanted to prepare us and put those to a formal request at some point if you want to do that.
Okay, question back. Did we get an explanation from September 30th?
From DOT?
Yeah.
Yes, and we spoke with DOT last week, explained to them where we were. that we were meeting tonight, that we expected the decision to be made tonight. I'll talk to them on Monday to get them an update. So, you know, they understand where we are, and that they just want time to continue this update.
Well, they also advised that the government made intention shut and. And so they said, keep all your plans soft because we may not be able to respond.
Yeah, I think more of that stuff.
Yeah, so. But I think the form that is that they're flexible.
Clear about deadline. We're good.
Yes.
I'd like to address Commissioner, Cole. It's not that we're sitting here trying to debate the vote that was taken. We can accept that and move on. But what I'm having a great deal of issue with is leaving a large sum of money that was made between 2022 and current, which is 2 years. That revenue has flowed into the operating fund, and this board has not received 1%, 1 penny of that revenue. Now, in any kind of business, nobody is going to go to the expense of putting their name out there, which we have, the Board of Commissioners, to get the grant, to get the tugboat, to allow somebody to use it for 2 years and not pay any revenue to the owner of the tugboat. That's not any kind of business deal without what revenue means. So there is money on the table. If this board so chooses to walk away from it, let's not to your guy.
I keep going back to, I mean, what's really the obligation? Yes, I agree with what you said, we know a lot of money in this system. Because this decision should have been made at that time, so that, you know, hey, this is a great opportunity, to generate additional revenue, profit share. But from a business standpoint, what obligation did the board at that time said, you know, no, we're not gonna worry about that, we're not going to lease agreement, with something, and you know, they want the operator, they got it, but that was the decision was made. Again, I don't know how we go back and say, hey, you know, you need to.
I fail to understand how the tugboat is different from the crane. It's different from the warehouses. I mean, the operator charges people who put the good in the warehouse. Why don't we get a share of that? He charges people to move the crates.
And see the rates.
Okay, why don't we get a piece of that? That's with the operating agreement. That's the tonnage fee. That's the, you know, how is the tug different from the crane?
Here we negotiated the OPA operating agreement, but why did Word say that it was only for partner inventory?
In case there was other revenue opportunities like power supply, you know, those kind of things.
So if a ship comes into the port and if we provide on-dock power, how is that different connecting to a power line and paying for power? How is that different than crane?
No, if you have to build infrastructure for it.
Okay, so if you have to invest in infrastructure, like buying this special piece of equipment, the tub.
Right. But
No, there's like a comment.
I mean, we're the only port authority that owns a tug. Ask around, none of the other ports in Florida own a tug. None of the other ports. Does the port authority own a tug? Yes, please go ahead.
yeah,
Any further discussion?
I was trying to make one hand document ready to.
Sure.
Discussion.
Yep, let's do that.
So the sale agreement, not the one in your package, the one that I emailed earlier and handed out before the meeting, that is the current version. So a couple items to go through. Section 3, obviously September will have to be changed document because we're not going to vote before next week. Section 7 covers indemnity, and I bring that up because in section 16, counsel for the operator did last email to me, and the only thing I have not received the answer to my question. They counsel for the operator struck the word indemnities in section 16. I'm not sure why, I asked why, and then you seeking response from the inference would be that the indemnity language is covered again in section 7. I presume that, but I don't know that specifically. Section 13 has been updated as the language regarding post-closing use of the vessel. Like back and forth with that, if this language is in line with some of the conversations you'll have with your commissioners and a little bit more appropriate if you recall. And what's reflected in your packet is if there was a 3-year period of time, which I didn't like and recommended that would change, and so this language is being proposed. So those are the sections I want to bring up. Everything else is generally being the same, purchase price, things like that. So what I really, what I'm putting in front of you is a document for your approval, recognizing that section 3 will say October rather than September. And then any questions you may have on the other sections, and also that section 16 will not include the word indemnities.
So section 13 does not restrict any sale, so they could turn around and sell it as soon as this closes.
You could,
And then it would be able to, yeah.
but there's the other.
So, and if it's talking over here, I mean, how they're gonna affect us, I mean, the customers are currently here, because then we run into, I don't know what the cost was, the cost was, here versus one coming out of Jacksonville. Everywhere, there's substantially more, right? So I mean, I think from a customer standpoint, I think that would hurt, so that's why I don't believe it's, you know, from the standpoint, saying you need it out here, we're gonna use it here because we have this stuff where it's gonna be wild. I mean, right?
Can we restrict the sale, like for a period of time?
But it's up to you what you want the language to.
Can we say that if it sells for X amount, it sells for more than the amount in the purchase price within a certain period of time, we can share the revenues, any difference in the purchase price?
There's no prohibition on you proposing any language. It's just a matter of whether the operator will accept.
Let me say this. If we keep coming up with all these restrictions and all these changes, this is not settlement, I will say, and we're gonna lose the opportunity to get this off of our back. We've got a deadline, we need to make it, we need to get it done.
Well, obviously, we're not gonna make it, deadline.
I would say that the deadline has been discussed and it is not hard deadline. I mean, I'm still speaking to them on Monday, and they know that I'm not talking to them to give them $1 million check. So they understand where we are. We're very candid with them. We explain exactly where we are procedurally and reviewing it. They're comfortable, and they expect an update on Monday on what we all.
I'm gonna say this. We talked about what happened in the past. And obviously a mistake was made when the tugboat came in. It should have been identified as a revenue source and treated as such by this people. It wasn't. Now, we're pretty much in the same situation with the operator having the right, the privilege, whatever you want to call it, to move this tugboat at their discretion. We're putting ourselves back in the same position. Now, if you're sitting here and you're jittery about either keeping the tugboat or selling the tugboat, I think we better analyze and make sure that we cover all the bases. Whether, I mean, it's already been voted that we sell, okay, that's fine. But our intentions with that was that that tug boat stay here. How long? I didn't hear anybody discuss that. But I will say too, once we go through with this deal, if they decide in 3 months they're going to sell that tugboat, we have no right to say anything to them.
Why would we pay $1 for a tugboat? It's only worth $350,000.
No, I'm saying,
Selling that out.
you got
It's the
that
tug,
could be a point.
So,
it's the tug and 6 pieces per ton. We keep saying the tug, but it is.
yeah, I think they lose the value and their value is. I don't know.
The tugboat is a cash cow. Whether you believe the
I mean, that's
don't
also
believe that it
because
is a
you
cash.
don't have full expenses. You could have put the expenses in, they're not there. If they're over 1.2 million for 4 years.
Well, let me say this,
A huge loss. So this is misleading, this isn't accurate. I don't know what you're thinking is a cash cow.
well, I can tell you this, we asked for this documentation back in September 2023. If you would have been upfront before coming,
You don't know. Then you say,
what you been doing, and I looked at the beginning of the week. You supply, so I. There's so much supply. Do I think there might have been more? Yeah, I do. But I didn't have a vessel schedule to compare. I had to take face value on. This comes from your documentation that you supplied to us.
no, this is from somebody who looked at it and heated it incorrectly. The revenue is actually, but the expenses, not all the expenses were captured. I don't know why. But
You know,
there's a lot.
I don't know. When I ask question, my response is, I don't know, I'll have to look into it. Just like we're gonna look into the crane being on the North Range, still haven't got a response for that.
All right, let's just talk about
Let's give you some examples of people that are watching, like,
who reviewed the expenses and entered them into whatever was behind us, the spreadsheet is doing.
got there Monday. All we can go by is what you supply. I didn't go full file, but I can tell you this, if that's the way you conduct your business, I would suggest this board take a hard look at what we're getting into. Because they supply the documentation for us to look at. The documentation that was supplied are the figures that we put up on the screen.
That's not true.
If they're, let me tell you something, I don't know what you insinuating, but I think that you took us upstairs and set us down at Q5. Here's the revenue, and here's the expenses. I can only hope and believe that he's being transparent with us and giving us the full fact. I don't believe that that was the case. So you think he lied to us? You interpret it however you want. He's saying there was not true. He doesn't interpret what you're saying. He's saying that they said it's not about material. He said he didn't supply that material. Yeah, but
We have for instance and the revenue. I think that you guys are so interested in the revenue, you don't care about the expense, and it wasn't all that.
I look
We want you to have to key in.
I looked at the expenses. Did it make any sense to me? No, because a lot of that stuff was low dollar figures. There were some 1,500, 1,700, 1,600.
360,000.
I
I don't see that one.
didn't see that one in there.
Get it dried off and 2023.
That's included in there. I even double checked with Mr. Clark.
These figures are saying no reason, but they were in the file that we looked. They were in the file we tallied.
We tabulated those same files. you're roughly right on the revenue. You miss, yeah, roughly right. It looks like you're off a little bit, like probably around 20.
So you're telling me that 350,000 to the last year, you are missing.
360, yeah.
Okay, so that means you done about over a year. And then you put it into there when it was caught.
When you requested this information, we notified you that this is the new house, and it was only around 2023. And we recently, we asked for all the other years, and so we went and grabbed them and put them together. They only exist in invoices. And you don't report out on ton revenue. So it's only invoices, that's all we have. So we have invoices for revenue. And these tug revenue pieces are just line items and invoices to customers. It's not like we bill separate. Is this making sense?
No, because the invoices I had the security on there.
That's what I just
At the whole line.
with a lot of other lines. So that's
You know, looking at tug revenue, which was, a more together part.
right, but we don't report on tug revenue. Right, it goes into the system, it gets generated into the invoice with a bunch of other stuff, all the services that we offer, and we invoice for it. So if you want to just look at tug revenue, that's all you can look at, our invoices, and go and pick out those line items.
That's what we did.
You got pretty close.
That's what we did.
You're about $1,900,000 on revenue. Then you have the expense folder. Right?
I just said you had two files, one was your
That's right.
expenses and one was that.
This is incomplete on the expense folder. I'm saying if you want to know the active expenses, I doubt you do. You need to go back through and double check it because you're missing all of them. Half of them.
Half,
Well, you're missing 60, 70.
what's that revenue? Are we missing half of them too?
You're roughly right on that. You're plus or minus 25,000 on that. But this is manually keyed in, so mistakes can happen. But I understand you're more focused on the revenue than you are on the expense. It's roughly 1.4 million with expenses 1.2 million. If you went back through, you see it.
Somehow I don't, I can't buy that.
How would you not buy it and have documentation? You just have to look at it.
I looked at your two folders. You had an expense one.
Did you tabulate it?
No, we didn't tabulate, we didn't tabulate it out.
That's how you sum it up.
There's your page.
You must have did some scans. You must have keyed it in wrong. It's not there.
You can't believe that this is reasonable, right? That there were no expenses in 2021 and only, you know that there's a captain hired by the operator,
Every year.
right? I mean, you know this.
Yeah.
So you can't,
I think you just re-tabulated what we were given,
okay, but
period.
does it make any sense?
Doesn't make any sense to me because still, based on my experience, I would say the numbers still aren't where they should be.
I mean, your chart shows no expenses in 2021. It's not even realistic. It's not even possible.
2021 is not, he's already said we shouldn't even have been, and I agree. I said, in July 2022, July 2024, to give it a base.
The entity operator said 2021. We went back and looked. We were able to find invoices around.
Do I believe 2021? Absolutely. I'll say it.
In November,
You got animal expense.
There's been very little spirit on it, but
in
That's-
November, in November 2021, the Ocean Highway Port Authority submitted a formal letter to Nassau Terminals listing out Nassau Terminals breach of the property. And it was directed to Mr. Jimerson, who I believe he proclaimed. But Patrick wrote the letter. It was November 5th, 2021, and it's an 8-page letter, and it lists out all the issues we were having at the time. And that time, we had asked for records related to the tug, partly because our customers were complaining that the tug service charges were all over the map. And when I look back to some of the charges from 2021, they were in. So sometimes it would be 18,000, and I know it might be different size vessels, there might be different, like, when you bring physical issues that would justify a different charge for a different vessel, I get that. But what the complaint was that even if it wasn't needed, it was being charged, right? And these were longtime customers that didn't necessarily need a tug when they were leaving, and they were being charged twice.
Was it correct?
So we demanded, more information. This was the only way that we can handle it. We didn't have time. And so the board demanded the records. And that request was formally made, and there was notice that OPA demanded a share of the revenues at that time. So I just want to be clear that it's not a new request. It's not like we're just waiting till the 9th hour to get that request. It should have been brought to the
As
it should have been part of your politically bought terminals to see that the letter had come from the lawyer, the man.
sure it was, sure it was.
Yeah.
But this is the bottom line. Everybody's conveniently overlooking this one piece. As mutually, agreed. We haven't agreed to share the revenue, we're not.
Well, the agreement actually says that it shall be divided.
As mutually agreed.
Okay.
So when did we agree?
The board asked for an operating agreement, and they were told they shouldn't do that because it would be taxed. My criticism of that is always that this board shouldn't make decisions to avoid tax. So, but I keep saying that.
As mutually agreed, we're not going to. This revenue share conversation is dead. We're not going to agree. Well, we've bent over backwards. We've adjusted our language multiple times in the purchase agreement.
I've actually read the emails back and forth, and I would not characterize it as me as bending over backward and negotiating with Rob, rather than
We've done,
the thing.
we've done a number of things that are atypical, that are not normal or standard purchase agreements. As far as graders and liability,
That's all are here. The reason this board is here dealing with this is because this operator, the same entity, which is what you consider, same entity, went to this board, getting this stuff up. And made a promise to DOD that it never had an intention of fulfilling. That's true. So don't forget that. There's never to chime into your policy decisions, which is what you know. I'm going to push you off. The operator and buying this tugboat and making promises that he never intended to keep.
well, I
And actually, let's change it. Excuse me, I'm speaking. You can interrupt me, Greg, you're not me. That's why you're here. Because he hoodwinked and made promises under your name that he had no intention of keeping. And it got him in trouble with DOT. And now you're trying to get out of trouble with DOT. And they want to cooperate. They want to help you do that. The operator is not interested in helping you do that. That's my experience in talking to their attorney over and over again about this. So I'm happy to walk them through the language in the document. I'm happy to understand what this document says. That's what's in front of you. That's what you've been asked to.
Well, one of my concerns with the whole deal is that I don't want to go back and second guess the purchase price later. If they turn around and they sell the tug, it's gone from Bernardino. We're right back where we started before we ever had the whole crunch here. And that's, you don't want that. So I think that you can have something in it that says that they will not sell it over the first 3 years. Otherwise, we get, a share whatever they sell for, or please propose something that you've seen before, so they, some sort of constraint on selling it away from the Port Bernardino. But I don't want to have to go back and second guess this purchase price. I feel like we need to walk away clean. That's what they want. That's what we want. And I would appreciate the operator honoring some of their other commitments. So I think we need to move forward with this purchase and sale agreement. And I think they deserve the claim on revenue. I don't think we should walk away from that, but it doesn't sound like the board has any will to pursue it. And I want to pursue it, if Commissioner Nelson wants to pursue it, but I don't know if anyone else.
Madam Chair, I would like to say one thing, that I appreciate our attorney's explanation of this whole mess. I received a phone call today that the grant was activated and the towboat came online. We did not need a towboat. We had a very good working relationship with Cross State and with Moran at Jacksonville. It was brought up here to operate a large service between Fernandina Beach, Savannah, and Charleston. Columbia Coastal Large Service sent a couple of their representatives down. They talked to me about it, and when they left, it was no go. We knew about it in the first few days of the towboat being there. This was not going anywhere. So you're correct in what you stated. We got into a situation, or let me correct that, the board at that time got into a situation that they took it out. And as long as the free road was fed, they took full advantage of it. And that's why I say, I know that towboat's a cash cow. I've seen what it brought in. So, Madam Chair, I do agree with you. The board has voted to sell the boat against my better judgment. I think this is still gonna come back on us because as soon as the operator figures that they can move that towboat into another location or make a profit, but it's gone. Who's gonna pay that?
So originally, the tug was considered to be 800,000 initial purchase price, or what was the original purchase price allocation of the tug?
Off the top of my head, I would want to say 850 for that, about the $200,000.
Maintenance that went into escrow was like 260,000.
$250,000.
That's the exact. But the tug was somewhere around 800, but I'd have to look back on the documentation. There were obviously there were closing costs, attorney fees, and other things associated with the sale. So, what was the actual purchase price to the seller of the tug? I'd have to look back. It's somewhere around it.
And I know that the operator did originally offer 2.5% revenue share, and then his board voted just for 0. I don't know why. So it feels like the longer we talk about it, the worse of the deal we make for ourselves. I'm not understanding where some of the allegiances are, but we really need to be protecting revenue opportunities, because it doesn't make sense to propose policy to sell fixed assets to fund operations and then to just turn your back on opportunities through shared revenue. So, Patrick, can we add language here to section 13 about the 3-year restriction on sale?
So I think the best way to do any changes to the document that I delivered to you, not one of the to change, would be to make a motion with any amendments you want to the document. I think from a almost not a scrivener, but again, section 3 that needs to change to October. That's not a material change. Section 16, the operator is asking that the word indemnities be removed from survivability, which I'm okay with. So if you were going to just do those, I would recommend you make a motion as amended. But if you have specific language you want to add, that needs to be part of your motion material. So if you were to say, I make a motion to approve the purchase and sale agreement, you can either make an amendment or move to amend this agreement in proposed language, or you can move to approve the document with proposed amended language. Or you can move to approve it with just a couple of things that
Okay, so the key, I just would like to talk about what the amendment would be before we start talking motions. So this is to section 13. And this section says that there's no restriction on the purchaser from selling the asset
Or charter into the third party.
or chartering it to a third party. So if it's chartered to a third party, then it could also live for, but it would still be under ownership.
That's how I read that, yes.
Okay,
Those are what I would call exit terms.
okay, well, why don't we just say that they can't sell it or charter it in the first 3 years, and just make it simple? And then if they decide, if they have to do that, they have to come back and get an amendment. And then we work out the terms.
Yeah, I just see, either that needs to be put in motion or like.
So I think that we would say at the end of the first sentence, provided however. That the purchaser agrees not to sell or charter. A tugboat or lunch. For the first 3 years from the effective date. That would be my proposed,
Not sure, back.
yes.
Mr. Hill, would that be agreeable for you or when you think it was an answer?
Yeah, I would agree to 3 years.
Awesome. Okay, so then if it did need to be chartered or sold for commercial reasons, then, we would just expect operator to come back and say we need an amendment, and then we would work out what the deal with the vendor would be. So, keep something?
Oh, we could just put no sale or charter within the first 2 years without opening the people.
Okay. And then, regarding the additional revenues, are we going to discuss that now, or what was the sense of the board?
There's a lot to cash out. With that. So I would say, let's get this out of the way, and I know Commissioner Nelson has said, and you don't want to take away what you got in your hand right now, because that's your bargaining chip. So you don't want to sell it, got that in your hand. So this can go on forever, about what we want to do. But I feel like she can go ahead and sell this and get it done before we do run into a deadline.
Well, when you aren't willing to, when you aren't willing to wait to negotiate a very better price, sometimes you have to take a discount. So would anyone on the board like to propose a different amount of money? What I proposed was $1,000, which I think is more than fair considering the time that all this equipment has been available to the operator. But to put this to rest, I think, I still think that's a bargain, but if there's a lesser amount that you want to propose, then now will be the time to propose it.
I'm sorry, what did you say? Can you restate that?
Sure. So in the language that I
Copy that again.
So we don't really have a way of figuring out what the revenue is for the equipment. And I think when it was acquired, it was already used equipment. The trucks, the 6 trucks, those were already, I think, used. I don't think they were new. Anyway, so we're not really talking about that at all. We've been focused mostly on the revenue that's come from the tug, but please don't forget that the equipment is also being conveyed to the operator. And the operator has had usage of all this equipment under the auspices of the M95 grant program, which was expressly to conduct the barge service, docking and unloading. We think approximately $800,000 of that price was for the tug, another $200,000 to change, $250,000 was actually folded into the grant and was used for the first call out service. Is that correct? The escrow. Yes, yes, so that was for the first call out, so the first call out actually was also accomplished through the grant,
part of it.
part of it.
So obviously it was used for maintenance. And yes, the final piece went to pay for part of the whole out, that first all out.
So making that first year, very little cost to the operator. Which, has a benefit to be able to do all that for this amount of time. So I proposed $100,000, which I think is a reasonable share of the revenues. It would be, if we're calculating based on revenues, it ends up being about 6% of the revenues. Typically, our revenue share is around 3.6%, but I think given the circumstances, I think that's actually a very fair amount. But I haven't heard anyone else propose any other numbers. I just want to follow.
My concern is when we come back to, if we made some river about this, by all means, let's go for it. My concern though is we still have to pay back this grant. So if we say, hey, this is now, we're gonna agree to these terms, but we also want $100,000. That's the same as the revenue share, agreement way stock, like $1 million with a tub and I get 350,000. And then one. And that's again, it's decisions were made previously or kind of from out given things. That's my concern. Things are very out itself and it just all out. It's gonna give us time and it's great. You would try to finalize those, but when it comes to the revenue, Greg just said there's not gonna be shared. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I said yes, authorized to say the new turned out 25,000. I don't know. But we heard that they're LMAX. And again, one has a big wobble. And that's my biggest concern with all of this. I think the whole situation, I wish it would been handled better. I wish it would have numbers. These are great. And thank you to Chair Biddle, to Commissioner Nelson, and Rosanna, and look, it's not right, wrong, different. We got the revenue close enough. And, but at the end of the day, I just we got to get this done because we have to go back to the American and say, yeah, how do we got here? I think that now it's solid. We got to get this done and get that $1 million paid back. I do have a question. I just heard the 2.5% thing came up with they offered 2.5%. I don't think I remember seeing. I saw 2.5%, and also I saw 20%, maybe as a counter. But I never saw anything in front of us that directly said, "Hey, $100 million on this 2.5%." So I don't know where those are came from these styles and three-part negotiation terms and
My recollection is originally our proposal was 20%. I think, and I may be wrong at the meeting, and I wasn't in attendance. Greg had proposed 2.5, but then I probably have an email or maybe a phone call from council for the operator saying, no, we're not doing it. No check. That's my recollection.
but it's not the anybody here said, of course, we turn down and make it zero. We just that has never came to us. The last decision, 2.5%, or maybe it was just still part of the discussions, negotiations. But I've seen that in an email chain somewhere, but I just want clarification on that because
I can't remember crystal clear which came first, but the 20% came from us. I thought it was a counter 2.5, and then I remember being told that it's nothing. And then 2 weeks ago, the discussion was, let's deal with revenues later.
My recollection is we proposed the purchase agreement. He came back with red lines with the 2.5. I think with the 2.5.
Yeah.
We went back and forth on some other language. Then I can't remember, it was 20.5%, whatever it was, 20% came in later, and actually, if you found out, the last meeting, let's say. And we started meeting all before that.
So the 2.5% came from your account or came from Greg?
It came back, the way I remember it, purchase agreement came back. And with reruns from OVA with the 2.5%.
Yeah, I didn't propose 2.5%.
If it matters, I'll work it.
I know you
Well,
want
it's everything off, so clarification.
came from Savage. My recollection of those Savage. Because OPA never proposed
Well,
an amount of loan.
you said you went and talked with somebody at Workforce Council, you said, what's the normal revenue share, it was up between 2 and 5, between. You know,
You see that anywhere?
was.
I see some comments from Zach Brown here. Let's see, no, but in any event. Now we have 0. So yeah, we're negotiating backward.
Once it's up, though, just put it there now. You lose all control. You're not gonna be able to control it. If they decide to sell it, sub it out, charter it to maybe another tow company, it's not gonna be able to change it. You're gonna be right back where we were prior to getting the tow. And the system that we had in place with Moran and Cross Creek worked. It worked for the customers. There were none complaining. There was just a person that saw that the tugboat from the individual that had it for sale was going to generate hard cash, and it's done just that. I know I keep saying that, but you got to go back and look at where the problem started in order to figure out the solution. I think it's unfair that the operator can walk away with that revenue. I mean, you can look at it this way, $350,000 boat, okay? Pay us the million, which you collected from 2023 to 2024, pay us $350,000, stick the rest of it in the bank. That's exactly the scenario that we came up with when we started. Yeah, yeah, this is tough. And I can promise you that down the road, there's gonna be people after that. So. Madam Chair, you know how I feel about it. When I've been put in a position to make sure the taxpayers get a fair shake, walking away from this kind of money is not a fair shake. So.
Yeah, I go back to the July emails, and it looks like 2.5% was in the agreement back in July. And there was an email from Zach Brown with Belgian Dam, who attached a draft amendment to the operating agreement, which addressed the use of port footage following closing and a revenue sharing model with 2.5% of revenues generated from above. Doesn't say who proposed the 2.5%, but it's there was an amendment to the operating agreement that's going to be attached as Exhibit F, which I don't think now we're contemplating an amendment to the operating agreement, right? That was gone away. So some of the provisions that were in that amendment ended up going into this document. But what was deleted was going to be a new section 12.2. Which was called OPA vessel payment at 2.5% of all gross revenues generated by the vessel, regardless of what revenues earned for any other locations. The operators may have to maintain accurate detailed records of the vessel revenue and submitting the records to OPA. I think I helped to prepare this and Zach has to prepare this, but,
Yeah.
so. But, yeah, so that was gonna just amend the operating agreement. I think that the takeaway was that she wanted to have a fixed amount. So the feedback we're getting from, I think Davis actually gave us some of that feedback from Greg, was that revenue sharing and keeping track of records and reporting was gonna be cumbersome. And so could we just come up with a fixed amount? And so we came up with 100,000, and that's when we got a bunch of angry saying that we were asking for too much and we did not. So there, I mean, if the response to the 2.5% is that we should come up with a fixed amount at closing, I think we should come up with a fixed amount.
That,
I just, yeah, you remember?
it registered for all four.
Right,
It's 2.5 and 20, that's all for those four,
right,
not.
not for past robbers. Yeah, so under this CSA in front of us, there's neither go forward or go backward. There's nothing.
It's been proposed, there are. A couple of changes for me, the section 3 to 1. And it's section 16, removing the word abilities, that's all, that feels.
Section 13 discuss potential.
But that has been
It hasn't been.
removed. Those are my changes, section 3 and 16. But if there are any other changes, those would need to come in by way of motion or by way of amendment. I move it to amend.
So the revenues for just the very last fiscal year. What did we say the amount was for just the last fiscal year for 2023?
What do we?
Is that minus the cost, or is that just?
Yeah.
So it's 400
2023 was 490.
498,000. So 2.5% of that is only $12,450. So 2.5% of that will be every year, $12,450. So for the first 3 years, it's about $37,000. If the revenue stays the same. So that's 3 years worth of 2.5%, which I think is slightly lowest amount. But I haven't received a motion to accept the purchase and sale agreement, whatever amount, not going to it.
I'll make a motion, to accept the sale agreement with the amendment that the total stay at funding for the period of 3 years.
Second.
Okay, so I have.
That we can't sell it or charter it within 3 years without your approval.
We haven't, you said something about sale or charter without overall approval. There you go.
No sale or charter within the first 3 years without approval. That's your motion.
Yes, sir.
That's your second.
Yes.
Does that include changing section 3 of the month and removing the word activities from section 16?
Yes, I include that in my mind.
And your second. Thank you.
So a motion a second to adopt the PSA with those amendments stated. Is there anything to discuss? Yeah. Okay. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. No. So who are those?
No.
It's you and me. Okay. All right, so the motion passes 3-2. I'm gonna have a short recess and then we'll come back to.
We're recording.
Let's get back. 7:39, we're back in session. So last item was the Mara Copeland Investment Position. Next up is Communications Plan, Vice Chair Taylor has to take that to the date. The next item in old business is funding request number 0003 dredging project action item. What is this for, Sarah?
What you said about the, see,
So, because of the appendix norm, use the problem, I had asked we to move that to.
You have a motion? Okay. All right, so the next up is the funding request for, 003 for dredging. Is that a request from, or is it?
That's from Savage and they brought that up last meeting, but you deferred it to today for approval.
So I had looked at that last meeting, did any of the commissioners have a question about the dredging being reimbursed out of our maintenance account? So we have funds available in the maintenance account and they are available. Then under the operating agreement, those are obligations to be reimbursed for. So just so everyone's clear, the maintenance account, once the maintenance account balance gets to $1 million, then the revenue sharing was renegotiated. But I don't know the highest balance that account has ever had in it, but it is subject to withdrawals under certain terms of the agreement. It really is a discretionary variable. So this is an example of one of those instances. Okay, so do we need a formal vote on this item?
Yes, please.
Okay, I would receive a motion and a second. Time remains. For a second.
Sorry.
Okay, motion and second to pay the dredging amount of the maintenance and reserve account. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. All right, new business. This is something I added to the agenda. This is in response to the Florida legislature's new statutory requirements for special districts. And there is a resolution that's attached to the packet. And this tracks has been approved and reviewed by Patrick and his associate. So this tracks the language of the statute, and essentially, you know, we've put a lot of resources into our master plan. We already have those requirements. These are laws that pertain to special districts generally. So there's some language in this section of the legislation deals with other types of special districts. So fire control districts might deal with districts that have high or taxing authorities. So there's a lot in this chapter that doesn't apply to everyone. But there is a lot that does apply to the road. We are an independent special district, so everything in that section that applies to independent special districts is gonna have comments. The deadline to adopt the goals and objectives is October 1st. So that's why this has to be voted on tonight. So you have a resolution in front of you. You're adopting as our goals that we've already discussed and vetted as a board. Our charter is our charter document. We have reference to our strategic plan. And also to the sequence plan, which I said has reference on the website. And we also adopt. And then the other item that would change the way potentially change the way we do business, although I don't think it's that different, is that every time we make a motion or we take an action as a board, So formal action by the board, then we have to tie it back to a goal or objective. That we could accomplish. So we have to cite to a requirement within our charter, or authority within our charter, or a goal within our master plan. And I think for the most part, we do already do that, but maybe not every time. And so that would be the additional, additional thing we have to really think about resolutions. It just links it back to, how is this activity, which is, this is also example, right? Every activity we engage in has to further one of our adopted goals. And so we act as a board through resolutions. You set up before Patrick, but the way this board legally acts is by vote of the board activities. So when we vote, when we take, we prepare resolutions, each one is gonna have a reference. Something that's within our charter, our master plan, or ESTA. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, this says, whereas the statute requires each special district only on for December 31st for 20, December 1st, is what, 2025, and each year thereafter. But publish an annual report on the district's website describing the goals and any goal that did not meet it. But who's gonna go back and do that on the board? Is that, do we have to do that? No. No.
Going forward,
October first session.
going forward, this is gonna be done every year, like, make sure that you're all opposed to goals and objectives you achieved, and they're in for that given year.
Yeah.
So that's the, whereas the A B starts. So that we have an annual update posted on the website. We just need to remember that.
And the first one is in 2025.
Okay.
That's it. Please don't keep on. How manage it.
So my recommendation, having read a little bit about this, would be that in or around this time of each year. So I would suggest October to give November time of year, that your goal and objectives for that previous year are discussed. You decide which one you achieved, you decide which one you didn't achieve. Vote on that and put on the list. So it can be done, I would say, after you get through the period work and you pass the budget, then you need to focus on next month meeting, what did we achieve, what did we not achieve, formalize that. Consensus vote, put it on the list.
So I shared this resolution with Mike Rubin. And he thought that it was great. But I did ask, what are other boards that are special districts doing in order to comply, because we're all just sort of figuring out. And he said he would share and elicit feedback from the other boards to understand, what steps they're taking with their resolutions look like, what your goals and objectives look like. I mean, we're competitive, so we're not gonna share notes with them on everything, but these are public, the resolutions are gonna, our goals are gonna tell they have them on the website, so they can share it with us. So Rosanna, in October of every year we need a tickler that this is part of our process. Thank you for adding that to the list. What's your motion? You move in a second.
Information to approve resolution number 24-R10.
Do I have a second? Motion in a second to approve resolution 24-R10. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, commissioners. Okay, other items we brought by commissioners. I have a couple things. If you not have something to bring one for tonight. We are in a hurricane, a lot of tropical storm. Warning, I guess, for area. School are closed Thursday and Friday, wind is just picking up tonight, and we guys are all making preparations. I had asked, Orlando had intended to be here tonight, and it was a big mess throughout the week of the storm. Hope everybody stays safe, for tours, I know has a high wind plan, and, you know, secure cranes and secure other pieces of equipment. Is there anything you'd like to report specifically about preparations of the meeting for?
Just a follow. With that, like a state broader effort to all opportunities. So
Okay, and then there were some ships that were scheduled to be in port, but they're letting them out, I understand, that they're not gonna come to port.
We're so valuable. No, we were already, we are, sure. And we can sort of, yeah, we need.
So when we move through the different port conditions, we're gonna get to the point where the port will not accept any more vessels by Thursday. So because of that, those ships are being hauled out. So, I know that in the past, we've gotten a little bit more detailed reform. I think that's meeting legislation for the new year. Just what preparations are being made at the port and, so what steps we can take into for everything, so that's all about. Another issue that came up, we won't see each other before October 1st. On October 1st, the longshoremen are anticipated to strike. That's looking like that's gonna happen. That's gonna be. It's probably the least talked about most significant stalemate which occurred from trade with Italy, especially, in the US. And it's a great opportunity for Port Ferdinand because we are unionized. So hopefully, I know Virginia is monitoring the situation, and we're all aware of that. It's a great opportunity for the Port Ferdinand to pick up some business, because we will not be locked up. Okay.
Further, you can have, they're not gonna cross the 50 times. Action, any kind of matter.
We're just really workers.
That's correct. But the truckers, the travel trucks. They all,
it release a lot of off that harder, like the border, yeah, now it's sort of being back, so. Yeah. It's that with a lot of things.
I appreciate you being here right before the storm, and the baby's just safe. I'm sure you wanted to, do your board phone.
ERG and well, right now, with the agenda cooking off and one week, should be 8 o'clock or 11 o'clock tonight, whether or not I think we're ready. It's so that we'll be a lot of walk. And like a long way here.
Thanks for remembering your.